All right, while we're getting settled in here, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists here. To my left, I have Rosa Alvarado. She's with PMSM Architects. This is a firm that's the oldest one in California, Santa Barbara. Definitely Santa Barbara. Yeah, over 100 years old. And she said it's seen many iterations, and that's old for Santa Barbara. 111 years. The guiding principle of the firm that she works for as an architect is that it's dedicated to projects that enrich the community. So we're looking forward to hearing you talk about your work that you do there and have done at one of your other places here that you were connected to with Dawn. To Rosa's left, we have Dawn Ziemer, who is from KBZ Architects. She's a principal architect at Kruger, Bensen, and Ziemer. Interior designer, sorry. Oh, but it says KBZ Architects, but you're an interior designer. All right, principal interior designer. And you have your lead AP ID plus C. Did I say that right? I don't know. it's on your LinkedIn. How many of you have LinkedIn accounts? So this is where I found out some of the information is on LinkedIn. Yeah. Anyway, I found on the website too that you have a background in institutional facility design and modernization projects and historically significant projects here in Santa Barbara, which we'll be delighted to hear about as well. So each one of them has their own specialty. To Dawn's left, we have Matt Beausoleil. And one thing I forgot to mention is everybody here has either graduated from or taken classes from Santa Barbara City College. They were in your seat at one time, okay? So completely many. Matt is with AB Design Studio. They do residential, commercial, and hospitality projects. And we're looking forward to hearing a lot about what you do there. Lastly, we have another interior designer, get it right this time. We have Katie Crook. She's with Haywards Design Center. If you haven't been there before, it's a really fun place to visit. And she got her AA from here in interior design, right? Haywards is a fourth generation family business. So again, it's an older company that's been around a long time with a lot of history. So they're all going to show you some of their wonderful work. And with that, Rosa, I'm going to give it off to you.
I'm Rosa Alvarado. I'm an architect here in Santa Barbara. I'm a senior project architect and the market sector leader for the healthcare studio in our office. So I focus primarily on healthcare design, but I also do a lot of K-12 modernization types, education type works. I grew up here in Santa Barbara. I was born in Mexico, but I came here at a very early age, about 5 years old or so. And I went through the local school system. I graduated from Santa Barbara High School and shortly thereafter went on to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo to study architecture. It's a 5-year program there. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, have probably attended. And I'm sure that some of you all aspire to go to that school because it is one of the best schools for architecture. I'm very blessed to have been able to go there. While I was in high school, I had a career day where a gentleman named Ken Kruger came to visit us. And Laura and I were sharing stories about Ken Kruger. Ken Kruger is the Kruger in Kruger, Bensen, Ziemer, where Dawn Sophia works now. He unfortunately passed a few years ago, and so you know, he was basically the reason why I continued on with my dream of becoming an architect. He offered me a job when I was in high school after having come to my high school and career day, and I've worked with them for 22 years. So I had the pleasure of working with Dawn for many years, and about 9 years ago, oh gosh, I'm dating myself. 9 years or so ago, I moved on to PMSM, Phillips Metch Sweeney Moore Architects, mostly to pursue opportunities in different types of projects. I was focusing mostly on education work at KBZ, and now I focus mostly on healthcare. So it was just an opportunity that came, and I took it. So let's see. My day-to-day involves an array of things, mostly a lot of communication, both verbally and via email, on the phone, coordinating with our consultants. We deal with a team of consultants every single day on every single project. Our office focuses primarily on these 4 market sectors. However, we do other things that are kind of out of the ordinary. But basically, we do civic and aquatic type projects. We've worked on the airport here, some of the projects you might be familiar with. Santa Barbara Airport. This is one of my jobs, kind of random. They called and said, can you do a livestock barn? We said, sure. So we did a livestock barn at Ventura Fairgrounds. Another one of our primary markets that we focus on is the performing arts. Some of these that you might be familiar with are the Granada, of course. We did the major renovation there. Another local one is the Music Academy of the West in Montecito. The others are out of town, I believe. Thirdly, education. We do daycare through university type work. Some of the projects here that you might be familiar with are psychology building at UCSB. This is the La Cumbre Junior High School auditorium renovation project. And this is a school here, I believe it's Monte Vista School in Santa Barbara. The rest, again, are out of town. This is a project I worked on. It's Reedley modernization, and this is College of the Desert entry project that I worked on at in Palm Desert. And lastly, healthcare, my market. These are a lot of the healthcare projects. So I do a lot of work in hospitals. One of our major clients is Cottage. The other is the Cancer Center of Santa Barbara. And the Visiting Nurse and Hospice Care of Santa Barbara hired us to do their Serenity House project. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I know you've had experience with that facility. That was my project and the reason for my move to PMSM. That's where I started with that project. It was just a labor of love, a lot of learning. I'd never really been familiar with hospice until I got on this project, and it was just quite an amazing opportunity. It's an 18-bed hospice facility here in Santa Barbara, beautifully set up in the hills, not far from here actually, on Miramonte, and just really great. One example of what I as an architect enjoy the most, and that is learning new project types, getting to work closely with the client from beginning to end through construction, and then just seeing something as beautiful as this complete and serve the community. And that's one of the things that we do is projects that enrich the community. All of these projects enrich the community in one way or another. Serenity House being one of them. Cottage Hospital, obviously, it's an essential services building, so it serves our community. And schools, of course, serve our community. Aside from this full-time job, I am married and I have 3 sons, 2 of which are college students. They're twins. They're 19, and they're off in college in Phoenix. And Don Sofia, has known me long enough to know, me before I had kids. While in high school, it's crazy. So we've grown up with our kids, and I have a younger son who's 12 who attends Santa Barbara Junior High School. And so that's another full-time job. When I was pregnant with my twins, I kind of panicked, obviously knowing that I was going to have twins, but more than anything, I was really concerned about not being able to work. And KBZ was just so gracious to offer me the opportunity to work from home for a couple years while they were newborns. And that was quite an amazing opportunity, because with computers now in architecture in particular, we deal with everything electronically and we don't draft by hand anymore. And I was able to, function and work full time shortly after the kids were born, and work from home, which was really great. So if you're a woman out there and you want to have a family, I want to make sure and reiterate that doesn't mean that your life stops. Life goes on. It is possible. It's a lot of work, obviously, but I made it happen. So I'm very happy to have had that opportunity. And how much time do I have? Okay. So what I do on a daily basis, getting back to that, I have multiple projects. Right now I have a project list of close to 30 jobs at one time. We have teams. We have teams that help in different phases. All of them are in different phases. Some are in the proposal phase. Obviously, they're not jobs yet, but they're projects that we spend time on. We propose on a project. Sometimes we're invited. Sometimes we submit a proposal ourselves to try and get the job. And we have to kind of prove to the client that we're qualified and capable of providing the services for the particular job. Once we get the job, we go through the phases, which you may be familiar with: schematic design, design development, construction documents, bidding, and CA. So the various projects that I'm involved with now are in one of those many phases. Some are in closeout, which is at the end of the job. When you do institutional type work like we do, we deal with the state as the jurisdiction for review of our projects. We don't have projects that are reviewed typically in town, so we deal with the Division of the State Architect for schools and OSHPD for healthcare projects. And when a project is complete, we go through a series of paperwork and documentation and close out to ensure that the projects get closed out with certification. So a lot of follow-up and responsibility and organization is critical when you run a project. It's not all about, making pretty pictures, it's a lot of responsibility. Yes?
Can I just ask you to talk a little bit about your education?
Yes. Again, I grew up here in Santa Barbara, went to school here, and then I was very lucky to have been accepted immediately out of high school to Cal Poly. I turned 18 in San Luis Obispo, so I was very young. It's a 5-year program. When I graduated, I went back to work to KBZ for a while and started my examination process, and I got my license to be an architect, and I am also a LEED accredited professional, so I have my LEED certification. So the licensing process has changed throughout the years. When I took it, there were, I think, 8 exams, and there were hand drawing. The big one was a 12-hour, continuous 12-hour drafting exercise for the design portion, and I did not pass it the first time. It was very hard. It was very stressful. I ran out of time. But now it's all electronic, and I'm not sure, but I believe there's 7 exams now. 6. They reduced it even more? Lucky. Another thing that they've eliminated is at the end of the exams, there used to be an oral exam, and so you didn't do the oral until all of the exams had been passed, and basically that was a panel of 3 licensed architects. You went down to LA or San Francisco, sat in front of a panel. Before sitting in front of them, they gave you a set of drawings to look over for, I think, half hour or so. It was a project, and then they asked questions specifically about the project and your experience and how you would deal with certain situations. So I'm licensed now. I have my LEED certification, and that's my educational experience.
Talk a little bit more about LEED certification.
So LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It's a program that some buildings some buildings are certified as LEED. I'm an accredited professional, so I'm a LEED AP, but buildings get certified. And the certification is basically a point system in which you provide sustainable features in your design of a building. And they can range from, carpet, being recycled content, indoor quality, all sorts of points that you can get. And there's different divisions within the LEED program that add up, and there's a level that you can have the building certified at, the highest being platinum. And so I have not participated in a LEED project. A lot of building owners no longer really want to pursue that. Not only is it costly, but with our codes and the requirements that the code has for Title 24, energy requirements are so stringent as it is, so most buildings should and have to be sustainable. They have to have a certain lighting, natural lighting, and so on and so forth. So I have done on the Serenity House project a program through the city of Santa Barbara where it's built green, similar point system, just a different classification of LEED, or green, sustainable design. We had cisterns on that project, some water capturing opportunities with that, the lighting and the buildings insulation and so on and so forth, all contributed to points for Built Green Santa Barbara.
So at this point, I'd like to open it up for questions specifically for Rosa right now. So does anybody have any questions?
I've had a passion for architecture since I was 8 years old. My parents had a large addition done to my home when I was little, and I was just fascinated by the process. I've always been very artistic, so I was always interested in art, and I've also loved math until I got to calculus in college, but I thought I'd use those qualities, and I wanted to pursue architecture, and I took drafting courses throughout my high school years, and that is what introduced me to Ken, because he came and spoke to my drafting class in career day, and Ken and my drafting instructor were really good friends, and he reached out to my instructor after presenting and said, hey, is there anyone that's really interested in architecture that you would suggest, working with us? And they suggested me, and I was lucky enough to get the job. So I worked with KBZ starting in high school through college. I'd come home for the holidays or summer, and then after graduating. Well, like I said, I'm an immigrant to this country. My first language is Spanish, and I grew up in this community as a female and have a family, so there's no, there shouldn't be an obstacle being a woman and or of color. I feel that we have a very special, knowledge. Being women, we're more sensitive to our environment in certain respects, not always. Guys, don't get offended. But, we can contribute quite a bit, So I'm the market sector leader for the healthcare studio in our office, and from marketing all the way through production. And it just depends on the flow and the current status of the project load. Like I said, we do have a team, and so I'm constantly, kind of assigning tasks and they're reporting back and just making sure that the projects continually flow and, follow-up is there. And I'm, the primary contact with most of our clients. So I just have to ensure that each of those projects are flowing to completion. I'm not performing all that work. I can't possibly. I don't even draft hardly anymore. But I'm just ensuring that, our teams are on task and on time and so on and so forth. So they're in different phases, and so I just have to have accountability, and a tracking of each of the projects is critical. Yeah.
You're in charge of traffic.
A lot.
I know.
Yeah.
So a lot of multitasking, that's basically what
Yeah,
it's
for
about,
sure.
right?
For sure, absolutely.
So thank you, Rosa.
Thanks. Thank you.
So I did attend this college, and I took an interior design course, and I took a mechanical drafting class. And I think that really helped me kind of start to focus on where I wanted to go in my career. I also was fortunate enough to be I am the daughter of an architect, and so I was brought up in that world of design. I have a lot of memories of going to construction sites when I was a little kid, and I just thought it was thrilling. I loved it. It felt like you were going somewhere where you almost weren't supposed to go. I remember going to ribbon cutting ceremonies for new buildings that had just been completed as a little kid, and I thought that was really neat. So I had a real positive view of the design field as a kid. But by going to City College, I think that's what really opened my eyes to interior design, which I think is geared a bit more towards the decorative part of the design world. And so that was, my passion. After Santa Barbara City College, I went to California College of Arts and Crafts, which is now called California College of Art, up in the San Francisco, Oakland area. It was a 4-year program. I got a bachelor's there. And it was a very good experience. All of the instructors were mainly from kind of the big Bay Area heavy hitter design firms. So there's kind of a lot of pressure because you would come up and you would do your designs and you'd present them to these people that worked at Gensler and HOK, and they did not take any excuses from you at all. You had to perform, and so the level was pretty high there. So that was a good experience. So my education, that was pretty much it. I didn't go on and get a master's or anything. Work experience, I was kind of like Rosa. I was, before you, I was they called it the office girl at KBC. I don't know, were you? Yeah, it was like a gopher. And so I just did everything around the office. Before computers, you had to actually drive the drawings from the architect to the mechanical engineer's office or to the civil engineers. So I spent a lot of time driving around Santa Barbara. I also got to know the inner workings of a design firm, from everything from ordering supplies to running blueprints, and I knew how to troubleshoot the machine if it broke down. I knew how to change the ammonia in the blueprint machine. So anyway, it was kind of nice to get that footing. And then when I was back up at college, I got a job as an intern at a firm. It's actually 2 women who just had broken off from Gensler, and they were starting their own firm. So it was great to have this, very inexpensive young person to work for them. And so I got thrown in at the deep end. All of a sudden, like from the start, I was space planning and working with systems furniture and doing color boards and all that. So it was a good experience. Then I actually moved on and went to England and worked in London. And I worked for a really big design firm. It was huge. And all I did was space plan, just sitting there. And that was the era of like, you'd walk into these big open offices and it was just cubicles, just like, as far as I could see, and all these poor people are working in these little cubes. But there was a lot of that kind of work in that era, and so I got a lot of experience there. I moved back to Santa Barbara. Fortunately, I was able to move back here and came back to KBZ, and then here I am. So anyway, this is a picture of the Libero Theater before the renovation, which took place, I think, in 2014. Our firm was hired to come in, and it started out as an interiors project. And their main goal was to improve the comfort of the patrons that attended the theater. And so they wanted more comfortable seats, and they wanted to add air conditioning. And so pretty quickly, the project expanded to the exterior because we had to meet ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And one of the first things you have to do is provide an accessible path of travel to the theater. So the previous shot, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a slope up to the theater. The new design now levels it off, so it's accommodating for wheelchairs, and there's a ramp that takes you up to the... This is a before shot of the theater, before it was renovated. And so you can see it was kind of a drab. It's kind of hard to tell in this lighting, but it was, I don't know if you've all been there, but it's a historic landmark in Santa Barbara. It's designed by George Washington Smith and Luda Maria Riggs in 1924. It was constructed. So the main goal was to come in, fix it up, but have it feel like we hadn't done anything, like it was still the same Libero Theater. Just, it kind of got spruced up. What did they do? So this shot shows you 2 photos, and one of the big problems that we had to solve was how to bring in air conditioning into a theater that was not designed for that. And that's a typical thing that you do as an interior designer. You work with engineers, because what they do really has an effect on what the space could look like if you don't, especially if you don't work with them real well. You have to get it all planned out. So to bring air conditioning in, you need to have a place to supply the air and then a place to return the air. And it needs to be something that's it feels good, and then you don't want to hear it because you don't want to hear whistling when there's a performance going on. So besides the mechanical engineer, we also worked with the acoustical engineer and came up with this idea to cut kind of a square around the beautiful coffered ceiling. And then we added, that was for supply air, and then for return air, we added another grill below. So this was an original grill, this is a new grill. Hopefully when you go in there, you think they've been there forever, and then you won't even notice the holes in the ceiling. So that's kind of a typical thing that an interior designer would do, working with the engineers. Oh, I just threw this in because it was really dirty. And this is the top of the columns, and we noticed there are these tragedy and comedy masks up at the top, and no one had seen them before. And one night we were on the stage, we were kind of looking around at all the stains on the walls, and the theater guy had this light, and we were like, well, what is that? And so that gave us this idea of like, oh, we really need to light the columns because people need to see these masks. So you're always looking for inspiration and how to, you see little things like that, you're like, okay, and then it takes you down a path. So this is, of course, after the renovation. We worked with Ann Kale, who's a very talented lighting designer. And so what we came up with was we used the original light fixtures and then hid behind it really powerful new fixtures that then would uplight the space and light the columns. So here you come in and it doesn't look like we did much, but the overall atmosphere and feeling is hopefully a lot more alive and cleaned up. This space right here is for wheelchair use, and that's a big focus. And when you're doing layouts and planning, we had to have 8 wheelchair spaces in this theater, and so one wheelchair space takes up 7 seats of tickets. So what we came up with was a way to design a platform that moves in where this hole is. You remove the handrails and you put seats back in. So that took me like a week to figure that thing out because and detail it. So you spend a lot of time on that kind of stuff because there's lighting and how do you support the rail, but however you can take it out. So there's a lot of detailed drawing that I work on. Oh, tell me if am I going over?
No.
Okay.
You have about 5 minutes left.
Thanks. Okay, so here's it under construction, the women's restroom, and there it is during. So this is when I kind of panic. I'm like, oh my God, we really tore this thing up. I hope it comes out okay. And then it came out pretty good. This is a library at Adams Elementary School that our firm did the whole building, and then interiors we were involved in from the start. And you walk in and it's kind of a warm space. It's got concrete floors. The facilities guys, the guys that maintain the campus, they like that. They like easy to clean flooring. So we designed all the cabinets. The ceiling is wood, but it's acoustic, so it absorbs sound. This is called the design lab. And school projects we work on a lot take a really long time. So when this building first was designed, it was a computer lab, and then it changed to a tablet lab. And then when it was under construction, it turned into the STEAM lab, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, all taught in one room. So we were constantly changing, and they're pouring concrete, and we're trying to move electrical outlets. But it came out pretty nice. The kids really use it a lot. And so I met with the principal and the teacher to come up with the furniture for a new program that they've never done before. So we all kind of worked together to define what it was that went into a STEAM lab. And then here it is in use. It's at a engineering fair, and they, tons of people, crowds use it. Yeah, this is a similar project at Washington. I'll just kind of skim through. What was different at the Washington campus was it has a flat roof because we didn't want to block the views of the ocean. So that changed the whole look of the interior. One more, I guess. This is for the city of Santa Barbara. Besides schoolwork, we do a lot of work for cities and counties. So within that, there's a lot of variety. This is the office building for the fire department, and it was the result of us first working on the fire station on Carrillo Street. And by going through that exercise, we realized they didn't have enough space for both the firefighters and the administration, which they used to be in there together. So what we did, the interiors, or I did, is we did tons of space plans to prove to the powers that be that no, you really can't have both the firefighters and the admin in the same building. So you needed that justification for them to then go out and obtain more funding to then do this project. Luckily, they owned the building. It was a muffler shop for years. Had some really neat trusses in the building, so we wanted to keep that exposed. And so then we created almost like a little village down below. And then you can see we hid all the mechanical on the top of the village. So again, a lot of collaboration with mechanical engineers. Thanks.
Okay, I'm Katie. I am a kitchen and bath designer here in Santa Barbara. I work primarily on residential projects where so far it seems like we've had more commercial and hospitality type designers and architects. I've been doing kitchen and bath design since 2005. I was a student here first, started in 2004, and halfway through taking my classes, another local person like myself came in and talked to our class and talked about how great it was to do kitchen and bath design. It was functional art. You got to work with clients very closely. You got to see it from start to finish. It's something that they're going to use on an everyday basis, and I liked that aspect of design. And so I went back to her and asked if I could do an internship. And I worked with her for about 1.5 years, which was incredible. I got to see from the ground up, from being a type of gopher who does all the little errands to going out to job sites and working with contractors and engineers, and then actually getting to do a few small designs myself with them overseeing me just to help me kind of guide along through the process. So it was great to do it simultaneously while taking classes because I could take classroom knowledge and apply it to real world, which the two are very, very different. A little bit more about myself, I guess. Been married for 10 years to my high school sweetheart. I've lived in California and Texas. I moved in 2007 out to Austin for 5 years. My husband did graduate school out there, and so I got to work at a couple of design firms in Texas. It was also interesting looking back now because design aesthetics and what people are requesting in the Midwest are very different from what is requested out here. So having those two to kind of position against each other is very nice. Yeah, oh, it's the arrow, right? Okay. So how I made it. I did start here at City College. In high school, a art academy came in and did a presentation during one of my art classes and talked about interior design. And prior to that, I thought I was going to go become a psychology major, which is great because you actually need psychology to do this job. I immediately thought, this is perfect. This is what I want to do. I found a program that was in Santa Barbara and came here to City College. I did the 2-year associates. I felt like that was an important step, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue on to get a bachelor's, which, as it turns out, I did not continue on to do. I paired my degree here with an internship program that I did, and then I joined up with the NKBA, which is the National Kitchen and Bath Association. I've taken a lot of their webinars and local courses. They require you to do continuing education to maintain your membership with them. And so it's great. You keep up on new trends. You also get to learn new technologies, materials, and things that are coming out in the industry. My experience, I have been all over the board. I have done managing of kitchen design studios where we do the full scope, everything from flooring and lighting, paint colors, countertop materials, the whole works. You tend to work with fewer clients because you have a bigger scope, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I liked it because you did get to see more of the whole project and you had more influence as to what the project was going to look like. But there is a lot more stress that is going into managing a larger project. I worked at a cabinet manufacturer when I was in Texas. That was actually very interesting because you get to see the behind the scenes from a manufacturing perspective. You, as a designer, you're so used to ordering product, you look at catalogs, you know what to expect, but actually getting to see behind the scenes was very interesting. I've done retail sales and management, or also known as working for Restoration Hardware. If anybody works retail, my heart goes out to you. It is not that's probably my least favorite thing that I've ever done. It's grueling, the hours are brutal, you're on your feet all the time, you have to work with the public very, very closely, and expectations just, it's hard to meet people's expectations. Where I'm at now is I work at Hayward Lumber, or Hayward Design Center here in town. It is a fourth generation company. I like that it is sort of in between a true corporation and a family-owned company. We've got 9 locations between Santa Barbara and Pacific Grove, Redwood City area. I do predominantly cabinetry design, but what I do in cabinetry design influences the scope of the project for kitchen and baths. I do pretty much anything that could require cabinetry: kitchens, bathrooms, libraries, laundry rooms, garages, the whole works. But more often than not, we'll have a customer that comes in, they want to start a project, and we either get them set up with a contractor, an architect, an engineer, depending on the scope of their work. So we end up incorporating our work with a lot of other tradespeople here in town. I like what I do now because I do only sell one thing. I sell cabinetry. I don't have to worry about if the countertops came in, did they come in on time, were they cut correctly. I don't have to think about if the faucets got ordered, if the lights got ordered. So because my scope is much smaller, I feel like I can do a much better job for my clients and provide really good service.
Wait, can we go back and ask,
Sure.
what prompted you to put repeat after me, I can do this?
Oh, because you do work with people. And everybody's got unique personalities, and there are going to be really, really good days where you come to work and you love what you do, and there's going to be days where you just don't even want to look at your phone because it's been ringing every 5 minutes and people have questions for you. But it's worth it. At least it's worth it for me. I love what I do, so even the bad days are still okay. It makes all the other good days just really nice. I don't know if anybody has seen those funny memes where they say, this is what my mom thinks I do, this is what my, people think I do. Well, this is my version of this. What people think I do versus what I really do. I think if I had to guess my clients' perspectives, they would think I sit down and we meet at their house over a cup of coffee and we're flipping through books and magazines and pictures, and there's absolutely no kids around, it's quiet. And they're just going to agree on everything, and they have no budget. We can buy whatever we want. The items will then magically arrive. They fit perfectly. It doesn't cost as much money as I think it's going to cost, and it only took a whole weekend. I thank HGTV for that. And our job is really fun, which means it's not stressful at all. We just, go through life, la la la, it's going to be great. We're so lucky. We must have the best job in the world. What my job really looks like. I do sit down with people and we go through different options, but rarely what one person wants in a family does the other person really want. You have to find a nice middle ground. You also need to find things that work for the budget, the scope, the timeline. Some projects need to go very quickly. Some have more time for planning. In cases of structural or electrical requirements. I had a kitchen here recently where we wanted to do a very large open plan, move walls around, but at the end of the day it required a structural post to keep your ceiling up. And we had to redesign the island to incorporate it so it felt intentional and not just like a little post kind of hanging out in the middle of the room. So while we wanted to do something, it just wasn't feasible to do it. And that took a little bit of work with an engineer to come up with a full plan. I go to job sites a lot. I spend half my time going to job sites, checking in on the progress, where are we at, answering questions. You know, they might need to know where we're going to put water lines or switches, anything like that, and then problem solve as needed. I do a lot of paperwork. I do a lot of paperwork between ordering, processing paperwork at my company, making sure things get billed out correctly to our contractors. And you have to be very organized. I have a great filing system. I maybe am a little over-organized, but it works for me, and it makes it where I'm not wasting time sifting through paperwork. I can quickly get to what I need. And I had a point about that. That to do this job, you do have to have sort of a creative mind, an open mind, but you do also need to be very detail-oriented. If you are bad at paperwork, if you're bad at time management, it will be a struggle for you. Not that you can't succeed, but you just have to work a little bit harder. I also have to manage the finances, and that means I need to work on getting clients, keeping clients, following up, making sure that things get paid for. That's how we actually, make money as professionals. And my job really is still fun, despite all of this other stuff that goes with it. Mostly because it is functional art for me. I love the fact that people are going to use it every day. They're going to get up and cook in their kitchen. They're going to entertain. They can host a wedding at their house. And, it'll get used for many, many years. And there is something really gratifying about watching a project go from start to finish. I love watching the before pictures compared to the after and see how everything turned out. And I think that's probably the most rewarding part of my job. It makes, wanting to come back every day the reason I do what I do. Here's just one of my current projects. I maintain a house page. I'm happy to give Laura or Armando my link if you want to look at more of my stuff. But this is a spec house that I just recently finished up with out in Santa Barbara, Goleta kind of area. The image on the left is my floor plan that I create. It took probably 2 or 3 renditions to go through it and create a good layout that worked for them. And at the end, the picture on the right is what just got put on the market, I guess about a month or so ago. And the house sold after about 2 weeks. So that was really nice. It's like, yay, people love it. And this was sort of a fun one. The contractor gave me sort of a parameter of colors that they wanted to stay within, a budget, and then let me sort of play around with it and have some fun. Spec houses are one of my more favorite things to do, mostly because you don't actually have a true person who's going to live there at that moment. Trying to think if there's anything current work elsewise. Well, as I would take a look at the house page. It's probably the best way to see what I have been doing, and if you do have questions, you can always email me. I think that's all I had.
Did you need to leave a little early too?
I do need to leave a little bit early.
Since Katie needs to leave a little early, let's have some questions for her as well for a couple minutes. Over here.
Hi, is a spec house like a model home?
It's
Staged?
they will usually stage a spec house, but a spec house just means that it's something they're looking to sell right away. It's not like a model home where they're going to have people walk through and then build multiple homes after it. In this instance, it's a neighborhood of 6 homes. They're going to build each one a little bit differently. So we're going to build one, finish it, sell it, move on to the next one. This one sold like last month. The second one just went on the market this last weekend. And so once that one's sold, we'll start the next project and flow our way through the whole neighborhood. Yeah. Hands down, the number one request I get from clients is for white painted shaker cabinetry. I get that all day long. They really want to go for that coastal, and especially we're in Santa Barbara. They want white marble. They want provincial French oak floors. We want white cabinetry, open, airy, but also classical. They want timeless.
You want it all.
And their kitchen's 10 by 10, but they want to put a 48-inch range in it, and it's going to work. It's going to function great. In Texas, you see a little bit of that, but you also see a lot more traditional rustic design. A lot more woods I feel like are actually used. I feel like I see more painted cabinetry and more light neutrals, where the Midwest I feel like I saw more dark woods, rustic woods, warm tones, just kind of a little bit different aesthetics, I guess. Yeah, kind of a little more cabiny. Yeah. I would say, like right now, I have 8 projects that are in the installation phase, and then I've got about 5 or 6 that are in ordering phase that I'm waiting for them to arrive. I've got another 12 to 15 that are in the bidding phase, and I have gotten to the point where I am busy enough that I do a design retainer, in which case I do 1 bid, 1 proposal, and if they like my work and they feel like they want to work with me going forward, I take a retainer. It gets applied to the purchase of their cabinets. What's also nice about that for me is that I can kind of gauge how busy I'm going to get, and so then I can put people into slots based on how much time I'm going to have available. So that way I'm not getting 40 phone calls a day, going crazy, driving all over the place. But I would say on average, yeah, anywhere between 15 to 20 or so real active projects. I do use 2020 software. I learned it during my internship here in town. It's something you could definitely learn on the job, but having that experience ahead of time will make getting off the ground a little bit easier and faster for you. This career is great, especially in Santa Barbara. We're in a really unique market where people truly want to invest in their homes, they want to invest in their communities, and so they're willing to put the money and those resources into the design. I feel like there is a shortage of people who do what I do. There's enough business out there. So if you're able to go get an internship and work with somebody, learn the business, see if it's the right thing for you, you'd probably get ahead pretty fast. It just requires a little bit of training first. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Mom.
I looked at when Jana invited me to speak tonight, and I saw the topic, how I made it. My initial reaction was like, I haven't made it yet. Actually, when I was preparing for this presentation, I realized, and so I'm going to time myself here, that actually that I have made it. And to be honest with you, we've all made it. We're all here right now. We're all alive, and so we've all made it here tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you for being here and listening to everyone that has presented. There's been some really good presentations tonight. So I started looking back at what was important to me. My career as an architect started here at City College, and I was thinking about, like, what would if I can jump back 17 years, like, what would I tell myself to follow? These are points of advice that I have. It's just not what I believe, but it's just one person's opinion, so it's not like you have to follow it. Love what you do. Never stop learning. I recently became licensed, so I just was really present when I was getting my license that the learning process never ends. Wear many hats, so be versatile. Create. Everything you do in design, everything you do is design. So even an email, the way you set up, your closet, the way you fold your clothes, it's all intentional in design. Dedicate your time to something bigger than yourself. And so you'll see echoes of these points in the presentation tonight. So what I did is I started by drawing a map of where I've been, and you can see that it actually started at Santa Barbara City College, so you brought the right person here tonight, so good job on doing that. If you guys want to come in too, there's plenty of room to sit down here. And like some of the people here, it was I found my first internship through Santa Barbara City College, and I worked for James Zimmerman for 2 years. It was a great small little firm that did residential work. James is a great person. And eventually went on to Woodbury University from there. It's a small private school in Burbank that focuses on design. Once again, I said get out in the community, so I think one thing that's really important for me is being a part of organizations and dedicating my time to that. And so I joined a fraternity there, and that was probably one of the best things I did while I was in college, besides going to architecture school. So I'm going to jump into my student work right now. This was a barn project in my 3rd year of architecture. I got my undergraduate degree in architecture from Woodbury University. It's a 5-year program. And this project was, used sustainable materials and was meant to give back to the community. So it used, bamboo trusses, recyclable fabrics, oil drums, and pallets for the floor. It was meant for storing barn equipment. And what was neat about my studies there is I really started to explore these neighborhoods in the LA area and got to know, a city that was outside of Santa Barbara and different from me, and how some of these projects would also start to relate to their natural environment and context and community. And it was fun. I got to build a lot of stuff by hand. And it brought me to other things, other ways of exploring the creative process, like photography, writing, and I got to meet a lot of great people. This is after a study charrette where we had to make like a dozen models in one class, and so a lot of these people I'm still in contact with. I got to travel with them when I was in school. This is in Barcelona. And this is recently, a couple years ago, with my fraternity, Delta Sigma Phi. So I think it's important to put yourself out there. It's not just about school, but also about networking and meeting people as much as it is about the training at school. So once while I was at school, I worked for a company, Tom Kowal Group, and eventually my first real mentor, I'd say, William S. Long in Pasadena, and worked for those two firms for quite some time. And then once I graduated school, I decided that I wanted to do more project management in architecture, and so I joined the Albert Group Architects, and that's kind of where the slides pick up with the professional work. This is Oaks Christian Middle School that I worked on. That's it's in Thousand Oaks. Yeah, I was going to say Moore Park, but that's a little bit off there. So they took an old industrial building adjacent to their existing high school, and reused it for this middle school. This was an exciting project because I got to see it from the design process all the way through construction. I helped out with construction administration a lot on this project. So I got to work on a lot of the visuals and then got to see the finished product in the end. And I think that was really neat because a lot of times I was doing renderings but didn't always get to see what it looked like in the end. And then this was kind of an interesting time while I was at the Albert Group because it was right around when the recession started to hit. So a lot of the projects I worked on, I had some amazing, this is two commercial buildings. What was interesting about that time was that we did a lot of visuals with the hopes of getting work that never materialized, but in our minds it was still real. We're still designing and we had programs. But then there was a lot of stuff that I worked on that did get built. This was a house in Beverly Hills for families, a single family house. This was great because I got to manage this one from concept all the way through the drawing set and part of construction administration. So it was really neat being able to have some ownership of a project and get to see it through. So just some of the drawings. Once again, it was fun to draw this project. In fact, when I started this project, the owner was out of town for like 3 weeks of the company, and so I actually had the opportunity of getting a lot of work done, and it was focused and really great. So like I said, the recession happened. I actually went, in order to furlough my student loans from Woodbury, attended halftime at LACC for a semester, and once again, it was just such a fun experience learning. I took the only 2 classes they had left. History of Classical Music and Business 101, and 2 classes I'd never take if I had the choice, but actually really enjoyed it, and I took things from those classes that I still carry today. And then I worked for a friend at Alloy Architecture who introduced me to, which I'll talk about in a little bit, some house builds in Mexico, but I didn't stay there very long, and it was kind of a shaky time. I was looking for a job. I was actually unemployed for about 3 months. I was pretty lucky because a lot of my friends didn't have jobs at the time, so we went from kind of what I call the swinging zeros when everything was super busy. I was working 12-hour days on average, and then to a time where everyone was looking for work. And in 2010, I started working for Callison. It was just a big corporate firm based out of Seattle. There was 1,500 employees. I worked out of the Santa Monica office and got to work on theme parks. This is a 6,000 square meter I'm sorry, 600,000 square meter project with 5 different lands in Murcia, Spain. It was part of the executive architect team, so we were actually just kind of organizing all the designers on the project, all the other architects. So it's a good example of just project management. You know, we were kind of defining the process and doing less design work. So it's just another side of architecture that's out there. And this is kind of some of the renderings. I don't think last I saw, this project never got built. They started construction and ran out of funding. And then I actually moved back to Santa Barbara in 2014 to be with AB Design Studio. It's about a 20-person firm here in Santa Barbara. We have an LA office. We do commercial, residential work, hospitality, some more experimental projects, which I'll go over here in a minute. It's funny, I haven't updated my slideshow in a while. This is the Children's Museum next to the train station here in town. It's built now, so it just opened last weekend, I believe, so definitely go see it. It's a Barry Burkus design that we, AB Design Studio, executed. I had the opportunity to do some detailing on this project, and it's just beautiful. It's a fun space, so I definitely recommend go see it, even if it's just for the view. The view is absolutely amazing. The first project I worked for was actually just down the street from there, Wayfair Hostel and Hotel. I got to manage this project through construction administration, and it was fun because you're always designing even in construction administration. You know, even if it means sketching out a detail by hand. A lot of the stuff that I was issuing to the contractor was by hand, so I still end up drawing a lot, which is fun. I think I'm drawing more at AB than I have at any other place. Or other firm that I've worked for. This is we've also have a sister company, Cork10, that designs prefab options with using shipping containers. They make great office space. And we actually have a residential project that we're using shipping containers on right now. So very versatile, very fun. We actually have 2 of these units in the back of our office that we use as meeting room space and office space. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, stop by and take a look. It's pretty. They're actually pretty comfortable. That's a trade show that we did in LA. And this is Tino's Italian Grocery that I worked on a couple years ago while I was under construction, and just showing the process of that project from pouring concrete into the finished product. And these are some photos that I took. So. We also have a lot of fun at the company. This is our company golf cart that we ride to in the city. Great group of people. Once again, it's about community. And that was a picture taken recently. How am I doing on time?
Got about 4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay. Also, just a real quick, blurb about, I'm also on the executive board of American Institute of Architects Santa Barbara chapter. And I've done, through AB Design, landmark education, and I felt like the seminar series that's just really kind of, looks at yourself and how to improve yourself and just view your life. And I felt like in the last 3 years, I've really grown a lot. So just really thankful for those opportunities. You never know we're working for somewhere where it's going to lead you. So just wanted to say it. And I got my license in November of this year. And so it's just kind of, I forgot to include that slide. It's kind of an important one. So there it is. And being back in Santa Barbara is great. I love the ocean. I love the mountains. That's me on my one-man outrigger canoe. And it's just, I love the natural setting. So and running out of time here now, I'll go through this kind of quickly. So through my studies, I did a lot of studies on the U.S.-Mexico border. A lot of these photos I took, and I was just kind of drawn to this place, and so I really started gravitating towards there. In my studies, it was a place of real extremes. It was kind of funky. There's a lot of weird stuff that gets built down there and happens there, and it's always kind of in process. And it's connected to us, and in a lot of ways still separated. It is a political division, and so. This was a project that I entered in my 4th year at Woodbury University. It was part of the ACSA steel competition. It was a national competition for architecture students, and my partner and I actually got first place on that project. And so what it was taking trade from the proposed port at Ensenada and actually creating a zipper along the border from California to Mexico, like a transit line that kind of acts as a floating free trade zone above the two countries. That kind of became an autonomous zone that kind of weaved in between the two communities here, so you can kind of start to see that. And create like kind of a weird kind of floating connection between the two zones. Some of the details of that. I'm going to move kind of quickly through these, so you have to keep your eyes open, don't blink. Some of the inspirational images. We took, the traditional marketplace as inspiration on this project. But I kept, this is another of my thesis project, revitalizing the LA River. So this is my 5th year, looking at kind of this dead zone of concrete and finding a way to rehab it. This is a 16-foot site model that I used built off of trash and other found objects from around the site, chiclets wrappers, so just to show the linear nature of it. This was a charcoal spray paint mixed media drawing that I used, also laser cut, that was about 8 feet wide with some details of one of the bridge scenes, and charging some of the open spaces for public areas and creating housing and commercial spaces along this linear stretch of the river. Is a model that I built. So a lot was, it was kind of an interesting time at Woodbury. A lot was being done digitally, and I was still building physical models, but I continued to want to, I fell in love with the city of Tijuana and just the area. It was funky, it was kind of a little edgy. It was still connected to home. And so when I got the opportunity with Alloy Architecture, and I am running, I probably have like 2 more minutes if that's okay. Okay, 1 more minute, okay. When I got the opportunity to do house builds down there, and I've been down there about 5 times since then, and what we do is we give these families home ownership of their land through a nonprofit called Project Mercy. Usually they're working families with kids. It's a 24 by 16-foot home, and we go down in 1 day and build the entire structure. So I'll kind of just blow through these here. There's always kids and dogs running around. It's a great opportunity to meet new people, use some power tools. The families help build the houses and other things, and it's a great chance to spend time with friends. That's my wife and my father-in-law, and this really changed families' lives. 2 years ago, through actually one of the landmark programs, we built 3 houses in 1 day with 45 people. It was just amazing to change like a whole community just in 1 day. So, and I still like going back down there for fun. This is a water park that I went to. I'll blow through this. Good beer, good wine.
Can students participate in that project Mercy?
Yeah, yeah. I'll let you know. I don't have any trips scheduled down this year, but it's usually in the spring or fall, weather permitting. And so just let me know. Yeah, we're always looking for people. Yeah, so good food. And, you never know what's going to go on down there. So, but thank you for your time.
So we have Don and Matt here, both who can answer questions that you have just maybe for another 5 minutes or so. So please feel free, this is your time to ask them anything about their career and advice for yourself.
I think, there is always a need, and it's funny when you mentioned when you got out of college there was a recession. I was thinking, when I got out of college there was a recession, and there's always a recession, so I just, you just weather your way through it, and there is, and you're right, a lot of code-driven requirements do then trigger projects, especially with institutional projects, like when we work on the schools, as soon as you touch it, you then you trigger a lot of code requirements. So a lot of times our projects get a lot bigger. So.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting that you bring up the code issue about whether it's going to continue to bring projects. I think was kind of what you're hinting at, whether there's always going to be a need for that. I think there is, but I feel like there's also been projects that I've worked on where it's completely killed the project. There's a lot of restrictions, especially in this community in Santa Barbara. They're very strict with certain regulations, and so I've seen a few projects that have completely vanished because the client said, I don't want to spend money to do this. This is not the project I want. I guess there always is going to be a need, but then, sometimes there's less of a demand. We've both seen the recessions, and so I think that's an important time. Like I've been really lucky because I've been pretty versatile with the type of work that I've done, and so I was able to kind of work on different things at different types of firms, and I was just kind of creative with looking for where the work was. So. I have heard the same thing, and I was actually shocked to hear about that because California has the largest number of architects of any state, I believe, along with like New York, but we also have a large population, and numbers have decreased from what I've been told. I haven't actually looked at this fact that through recently getting licensed that there's a declining number of people registering to be architects. So, and I think that has to do with part of the registration process and examination process. It is a little daunting for a lot of people. Right now it's 5 exams for national, and then 1 exam for California, which is a lot of work, and there's a lot to study for that exam. So.
Well, I just know from experience. I don't know about official projections, but our firm is always looking for commercial interior designers because they're kind of a rare subgroup. And the way I'm seeing design continue is it's becoming a little more complicated to complete projects. Because, for instance, in a school, the tablet arms that you're sitting at, that's like the old, forget it. And so it's a lot more sophisticated, the type of furniture that's required for schools. And that, I'm starting to feel the pressure. I'm starting to do a lot more furniture projects that are complicated. Like that little library at Adams, I had 5 different furniture packages within that one project because there was the library furniture and storage. And so I think that, this is, intuition that maybe interiors would be growing because it's becoming a bit more sophisticated what we're having to deliver to our clients now. So.
Sure. So I think having a degree is a big part of the field, and I think a lot of the people. I'm just going back to thinking about who I've worked with. I think a majority of the people that work at my office and past architectural firms that I've worked for had a degree. I think the one exception is students that are studying as interns. We always have 1 or 2 interns at my office that I'm at right now, and so that would be one exception. Also, we have an administrative staff that is doing billing and proposals and that sort of stuff. That sometimes they don't have degrees, but yeah.
What about for interior design?
Well, with our firm, which is architecture, everyone who's working on projects has a degree, and I think that's we would require that at our firm because it's pretty technical what we're working on. So we do need that. So. That's just our firm.
I see.
Yeah,
So
because
Katie has her AA.
no, I have a bachelor's in interior.
Oh, but Katie, that was here.
Yeah,
Oh.
Katie that was here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, has an AA.
I'm sorry,
She's
yes.
the kitchen
Yeah.
and bath designer, and she has her AA, and she's been successful in AA.
Right.
So it depends
Absolutely.
on the type, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's yeah.
We have actually one of our lead designers, Joel's he was an architect and did schooling in the Philippines, and was a talent. Architecture is architecture. regardless of what country you're from. And so if you're talented and yeah, it's possible. To answer your question, yeah, we have Joel from the Philippines that's designing, and then we also have someone else that went to. He actually didn't. He moved from Iran to go to school here. Yeah, and he did his schooling here, but same thing. I mean, it was just like we're open to people from anywhere, really. So.
Yeah, one of our partners is from France, and he's the architect of the big building under construction right now. And then we have
Oh, you're talking about the one here on campus?
yeah, the West Campus, yeah. And then we have someone from the Philippines and someone from Vietnam, and we've had other people. So yeah.
Yeah.